Welcome, my name is Kenny Meesters and I'm going to help you dive a little bit deeper into the software and especially the configuration for the scoring application. You've just started the scoring application and you've already seen parts of it. Now let's make sure that the software is adapted to the circumstances of your event. For that we start the software, you can see it's still running, and we go to the admin or the scorekeepers interface. So we'll take the URL and add /admin. Now we go to the end of the list where it says settings, and here you will see several tabs that contain the different settings. There is tables and referees, rounds and stages, challenge, messaging, and the log of the application. So first of all, the tables and the referees. In this application, you can add multiple tables for your event, so it matches exactly the setup you have at your event. So there's table 1. And we can continue adding new tables, table 2, table 3, table 4, etc. In addition to the tables, we can also add referees. At your event, referees might be either staying at the same table or they might rotate. In any case, entering the names of the referees will help you later on to trace back in case there are any questions about the score. So we always recommend setting the tables and setting the referees for your event. So there is a head referee, but we can add new referees as well. So let's take the names of some of the developers that have worked on the software. Jeroen, Rickert, Martin, Sander, Rob, for example. So we have the referees, and finally there are some options for the score sheet, which is the interface the referees will see. First up, there's the option to hide the total score. By default, the score sheet will show the scored points while you're filling in the sheet. In case you don't want teams or the refs to see that score sheet, you can hide it by selecting hide total score. You can also, if you don't want to use the option for tables and referees, you can also deselect these options so the score sheet won't ask for these details. However, we would recommend you to keep that options for ease of scorekeeping. And finally, you can choose to sort teams by team number or by team name within the score sheet. I'll show you that in a minute. So once you've done that, always make sure to click Save Settings, and they're stored into the application or in the files that go along with the application. Next up, there are rounds and stages. So there are some default options, but we can modify them. For example, there are now defined practice rounds, qualification rounds, semifinals, and finals. So these are the different stages at your event. And each of these stages can have multiple rounds in it. So the practice rounds, for example, have 2 rounds, which means teams will play 2. The qualification rounds have 3 rounds, as per the global standard of the first Lego League. You can see the semifinals we've set to 0, and you will see that it makes the round disabled, and you will have finals. Suppose we want to add another stage to it, we can just click plus, say we call them quarterfinals, and it will have 1 stage in it. So this is added, and now with up and down we can change the order of the different stages at the event. We can also enable or disable the finals and the different rounds by setting the number of rounds. So remember, the number of rounds specifies how often teams will do that round. So for qualification, that will always be 3. Practice rounds can be 0, 1, 2, depends on your schedule. Finally, you can also remove different stages of your event by just clicking the Remove Stage button. If you have any scores already in your system, adding, deleting rounds, and changing the number does not affect the scores within it, but we highly recommend not to do it. So set these and leave the setting. Next, we have the challenge. This is an option that will by default go to the current season. So for this time will be the Animal Allies in the English version of the score sheet. It depends on the game you want to play. There are several predefined sheets available, and there will be more online. For example, you can also set the score sheet to the 2015 season. But by default, we'll keep it to the 2016. You don't have to enter this option. It will always default to the current season. Finally, there's the option for the messaging bus, which means that this scoring application will connect to other applications such as the display system. We'll explain more about that in a different episode. Finally, there's a technical log that keeps track of what the application is doing in case for your developers or you have any technical issues, you can use this to report what's going on so we can troubleshoot it. So these are the settings for the event. We've defined tables, we've defined referees, we set the options for the score sheet, we set the rounds and stages. These are the things you should at least do before starting the event. One of the other things we need to do is enter the teams. So we go to the teams, and here you have several options. Either we can add teams manually by clicking the edit button. We can set the team number and the team name. And then you can add more information later on. In case you don't want to manually enter all the information, there's also the option to import it from a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet here with several of the teams. And you can import this, just make sure you have at least the number and the name, ideally in the first and second column. Optionally, you can add other columns as well. You can just copy this with right-click copy, go to the application, click the import button, and paste the information there. Since I've also copied the header, you will select the option Data Contains Header. The number column identifies the column that has the team number in it. In our case, that's column number 1, as you can see in the spreadsheet. And then the name column is column number 2. You can import other columns as well, but at least these two are needed for the application to work. Once you've filled in all this information, you click OK, and the teams will be loaded into the application. And here you can still make changes to it. So now we have set the referees, we set the tables, we set the options, we set the rounds and stages, we've imported teams, which means we are ready to start scoring. And we'll explain how that works in the next episode.